It was the second week of school this semester, and we were asked to write a short poem in my Intro to Creative Writing class. I was looking forward to dabbling a little, having not written for leisure in quite some time, so I proudly shared my finished product in front of the class. The guy sitting in front of me, this smarmy one that's in every creative writing class and likes to pen coy sonnets begging for a muse to sprawl naked on his lap, he cocked a brow and leaned over the desk to tell me, "You're a great writer. You got this voice. How's your diction so good?" Now, he may or may not have been making a sad attempt at getting in my pants, but regardless, I told him. I spent a good portion of my adolescence on the internet, living vicariously through the characters of Harry Potter. The summer before my 8th grade year, I got into online role-playing groups. I'd been blogging on sites like Dead Journal, LiveJournal's punked-out, rebellious younger sibling, and the now-defunct Kaleda for about a year. It was mostly juvenile rambling, like, "Mackenzie got her last cavity filled today, and we're going out to eat Chinese in 5 minutes to celebrate. I didn't get anything when I got my braces put on. How fair is that? Speaking of putting on braces, I get my bottom ones on Thursday." I stumbled upon a blog for Eloise Midgen, one of the minor characters in the Harry Potter series, in the summer of '04, just before my 8th grade year began. Through poking around on the blogs linked to hers, I quickly discerned the modus operandi of online blog roleplay. You created a blog, or journal, for your character of choice, and then applied, usually filling out a short form and supplying a couple of examples of your writing. Then you joined the community, which was a shared journal where you could write with other players and discuss character interaction and plot. In the Harry Potter blogosphere, you could elect to follow J.K. Rowling's canon or not. There were some games that simply fleshed out the events outlined in the books, and some that invented entirely new story for relatively minor characters, like Harry's parents during their school years, for example, who are rarely mentioned in the books. Communities ranged from private storylines with 2 or 3 members to massive endeavors with hundreds of characters. I roleplayed for several years after that summer, but nothing could rival the feeling of my first interactions with other players, many of them adults, and nearly all of them better writers than I. My character, Emma Dobbs, botched concoctions in her potions class, fell in and out of love, and attended wizard prom. I created her from the bare-bones description that J.K. Rowling provided, and made her my own living, breathing entity. Over the years, my writing matured, and as I did, roleplay became intermittent and eventually faded away. My last serious endeavor was writing on and off from 2007 to 2008, with Deirdre, who was a girl my age from the greater Washington, D.C. area. She and I played Andromeda and Ted Tonks, a married couple who would eventually give birth to one of the key players in Harry Potter's army. The Tonks romance grew as a sapling did, tenuous at first, but strong and deeply rooted as they matured into adulthood. A scene from the beginning of their interactions, while they were still students at Hogwarts, went something like this. Hapless Ted had run into headstrong Andromeda, quite literally, in one of Hogwarts' magical shifting staircases, when they were caught by caretaker Filch and sentenced to a month's detention.
Andromeda blinked owlishly at the scruffy caretaker, and suddenly her brows furrowed. When Ted proceeded to explain their situation, she cut him off. "No," she started, putting Ted's arm down and snapping her gaze to Filch. "I'll have you know that I was just escorting him back to the Ravenclaw Commons. I ran into him when I was doing your dirty work." She took a few confident steps towards the caretaker, but she cringed inwardly as Filch spoke. He was right. She exhaled sharply, realizing that she had been caught. It was only when Filch muttered something about detention for a month that she snapped back to reality and stared at the caretaker incredulously. Andromeda Black and detention did not belong in the same sentence.
She had touched Ted again. What was that? 3 times tonight? 3 was a lucky number, wasn't it? Tonight was a night of good luck in droves. Ted mentally filed the date away forever, the 20th of March, 1977, the day that Andromeda Black touched him thrice. He realized that this was likely the most of anything he'd ever received from the girl, aside from perhaps insults and dirty looks, so he figured he'd cherish the moment to its fullest cherishing potential. And then, when Filch finally uttered the word detention, his heart soared and he did a silent cheer for himself. Good work, Tonks. Well done. You ought to be proud of yourself. Detention. He had gotten them detention together. What was next? Love? Marriage? Now, I wouldn't recommend spending several years of your life online. It tends to take a toll on your social life, your fitness level, and your complexion. But writing in digital spaces is what made me the communicator that I am today. Roleplay helped me to cultivate many skills that led to the major I ultimately selected in college, professional writing. I had played around with figurative language, rhetorical techniques, and turn of phrase, revising and editing my responses until every word accurately depicted what I envisioned in my mind. I've spent so much time hopping from article to article on thesaurus.com, trying to find the exact words to accurately describe Draco Malfoy's sly, simpering face, that now I have a whole host of vivid and active words filed away in my mental Rolodex. I learned to work in pairs, and sometimes larger groups, collaborating with scene partners in order to finish a cohesive project, where one character's actions flowed seamlessly into the next. This helped me to forge relationships with fellow writers, like Deirdre, from across the country. Collaboration, too, is a large part of the professional writing major, where students learn to work together in groups to produce polished documents. Roleplay taught me how to navigate digital spaces and tools as well. I learned not just how to blog and manage blogging communities, but also basic design principles, HTML, and Photoshop skills. I created graphics and personalized layouts for each of my characters' journals, as well as cropped and resized avatars in order to showcase their many different moods. Posts were formatted with bold and italic tags, as well as other basic HTML. Skills that came in handy last semester when I took an Intro to Web Authoring course. I even honed my research skills and reading comprehension through my years spent writing online. I read and reread the Potter series until the glue loosened at the book's bindings, separating the pages from their covers. I used an online encyclopedia, the Harry Potter lexicon, in order to look up spells or locations in the wizarding world. In my later playing years, when I began writing for Ted and Andromeda, I had to use the internet in order to understand a completely different era, looking up fads, British slang, and major current events of the late 1970s, in order to be as historically accurate in my writing as possible. Most of the evidence of my years spent role-playing online has been erased and expunged from the virtual record. Greatest Journal, the blogging website that I did the majority of my writing on, disappeared in January 2008, taking nearly half a decade's worth of time and work with it. The skill set that I spent long nights banging away at my keyboard to develop, however, lives on, as I draw on that knowledge in order to work towards a career in editing and publishing. The question of, how did you become such a good writer, is no different than, how did you become such a good skier, or archer, or artist, or wizard even? The answer is practice makes perfect. And practice I did in those early teenage years, when I came home from school, logged onto the computer, and immersed myself in Harry Potter's truly magical world. Accio Keyboard.